Thank you so much, Dr. Pfeffer. Members of the Bellarmine University class of 2022, family, friends, loved ones, welcome to Bellarmine. We're holding this ceremony today to officially welcome you as new members of our Bellarmine family and to formally recognize the beginning of 4 years that are going to change your life. Now, I realize that sounds a bit like something that came off of a brochure, right? But I happen to know from personal experience what 4 years here can do. That's because it was 4 years ago that I came to Bellarmine, and in that time, this place has absolutely changed my life. 4 years from now, when you're once again wearing robes like this for your graduation, you'll of course be just a little bit older, far wiser, and an expert in one or more of 50+ academic majors you might choose. But at Bellarmine, the changes will go far deeper than that. It's very likely that you're going to form bonds with some of your closest lifelong friends. Your professors will guide you and push you to find gifts and abilities within yourself that you never thought possible. You might be part of one of our numerous service programs that not only give back to our local community, but provide service and outreach across our home state, throughout the U.S., and even abroad. Your education will go far beyond the context of a lecture or textbook, I promise you. Most importantly, you'll come to know the truly special feature of our university, something affectionately known around here as the Bellarmine Difference. That difference is not something that we can capture in statistics or rankings or percentages. And if you ask about it around the Bellarmine community, you might get a different answer from each person. And that's because the difference is something that you have to experience. So it's unique for each individual. For some, that boils down to the faculty, who are not only experts in their field, who not only love what they teach, but who care intensely about each and every one of you, both as a student and as an individual. Now, don't expect this as a given, but I happen to know that one of my colleagues came back to campus at midnight to open a laboratory to support an intense all-night study session. The difference might be one of the countless other people around campus who care about you, maybe an advisor, an athletic coach, one of our famous dining staff or trolley drivers who are well known for learning students' names and always asking with genuine care and interest how you're doing. For others, the difference is our inclusive campus, our environment that respects, values, and dignifies each and every individual regardless of background or belief. I know that I speak on behalf of all of the faculty that for us, the difference is you, the students, who captivate us every day with how hard you're willing to work, how stridently you pursue your goals, and how willing you are to dedicate yourselves to the service of others. Today, I'm here to tell you about how I learned firsthand the true essence of the Bellarmine Difference, the part that can't be easily verbalized or explained, that part that you can only discover by experiencing. Now, to understand my story, you have to know a little bit more about me. Once again, I teach in the Department of Exercise Science, where we strive to help students become advocates for health and fitness through physical activity. And I like to walk, so to speak. In my case, I'm an avid runner, and I often train twice a day, and in the classroom, move around like we're playing musical chairs. On some occasions, I even serve as a lab subject for my students, allowing them to collect various physiologic data from me as they subject me to a rigorous exercise testing protocol. This would involve analyzing all of my exhaled air, tracking my heart rate, and sampling my blood to learn about the body's response during intense exercise. They even collect some subjective data, such as the tears of joy that I cry when they do all this to me without causing me any serious physical harm. Now, as a quick aside to some of our fellow programs, I'm only calling it like I see it, but I'm unaware of any besides exercise science who quite literally give blood, sweat, and tears to their students. I'm telling you all this not to brag, but only to provide some context. You see, at the end of last year, I suddenly became ill. Apparently, just a nasty stomach bug, nothing more. But after missing a few days, I returned, and several students told me that We were so worried. Dr. Carnes never misses a day. Certainly this was just a fluke though, so I went back to my normal routine. However, even though I continued to train, being so in tune with my body made me aware that something wasn't quite right. Just after spring break of this year, I became pretty ill again and had to miss an entire week. But this time the symptoms were a lot more mysterious. I was too weak to get out of bed, constantly felt dizzy and disoriented, and I had no appetite at all. Now, mind you, I'm a guy whose largest desk drawer is filled with snacks, so this was something out of the norm. When I came back, many of my students at this time were very worried, and I have to admit, I was too. Along with my illness, neck pain that had bothered me for the past year suddenly increased to an intolerable level. A week after coming back from that illness, but still experiencing this neck pain and continuing to have weakness, my doctor ordered an MRI of my neck, which showed something very large that was not supposed to be there. The mass was an extremely rare tumor called a hemangioblastoma, growing from the inside of my spinal cord, just beneath the base of my skull. Fortunately, it wasn't in my brain, and it was likely not cancerous. However, if untreated, the tumor could paralyze me. Ironically, the surgery to treat it could also paralyze me. 1 week later, I was on the operating table to have a portion of my skull temporarily cut out, the rear portion of 2 of my spinal vertebrae removed, an incision made into my spinal cord to have the tumor taken out. My fate was uncertain, but there was no question that my recovery was going to be a long and arduous process. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, first in the intensive care unit, then in a rehab wing of Baptist Hospital. Thankfully, I was not paralyzed. However, the invasiveness of the procedure left me with serious deficits in the function of both hands and arms. I could move my arms, but I couldn't control the movement. For instance, I vaguely remember that the first time I tried to move an arm, I smacked myself in the face. I also had no awareness where my arms or hands were, and I would constantly ask family members at my bedside, "Where are my arms?" only to be told, "Andrew, they're right at your side." For that first week in the hospital, I was 100% dependent. I couldn't do any of the things that we do every day that we sometimes take for granted. Think about not being able to grasp any objects. I wasn't able to move myself in bed, let alone get myself out of bed. Could not dress or undress, couldn't feed myself, bathe myself, even use the bathroom by myself. Now, at this point, you're wondering, what on earth does this have to do with the Bellarmine Difference? Let me tell you. Now, I know that my colleagues in exercise science and throughout the university are good teachers, but because of their compassion and selflessness, they taught me a thing or two about what really matters. While I was in the hospital, my entire teaching load was covered, no questions asked, on top of their already overflowing list of responsibilities. When my students found out I was in the hospital, they banded together to build a care package, stuffed with some of my favorite snacks, t-shirts bearing some of our favorite movie quotes that we jokingly exchanged in class, DVDs of some of my favorite shows and movies, which we also quoted, and a bundle of cards that were so thoughtful, so moving, and so well written that a number of them made me cry, and I have to admit, also made me think, where on earth was such amazing writing when you took your exams? Flowers poured in from students and colleagues. I didn't have to worry about the hospital food because I had homemade muffins and cookies, and wouldn't you know it, one of the physical therapists with whom I spent several hours a day was a Bellarmine Doctor of Physical Therapy student. Bellarmine is the kind of place where one of the first people at my bedside in the ICU was a close colleague and her husband. It's the kind of place where the dean of your school comes to visit you in the hospital not once but twice, crushing you in a bear hug both times. Bellarmine is the kind of place where one of the most respected professors in the entire university comes to break you out of the hospital wing and push you several miles in a wheelchair around a nearby park. Here's what I found to be the Bellarmine difference. There's no other place where more people are willing to pour out love and compassion and never ask anything in return. The difference is that here you're surrounded by a family who will be at your side at a moment's notice, who love you simply for being you. The only thing you have to do is be part of that family and be part of that difference. I've attended enough ceremonies like this to know that each one of these speeches always ends with a good quote. For this, I turn to one of the great scholars of history, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Of course, Professor Albus Dumbledore. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm sorry to hear that, but Professor Dumbledore is a fictional character, or so we're told, from the Harry Potter series of novels. And he famously said, "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." Now, since we're all wearing these fabulous robes, and let's be honest, if you're like me, pretending you're a witch or wizard, then let me say to you in complete truth, help will always be given at Bellarmine to those who ask for it. You'll find no shortage of help here, starting with your professors and your fellow classmates, but certainly not stopping there. You'll find loads of help in the Student Success Center, the Counseling Center, the Interfaith Office of Campus Ministry, endless student-run organizations, our Office of Identity and Inclusion, our Career Development Center, and the list goes on and on. So, if you're struggling in class or you feel unsure about your major or your future, ask. If you're feeling lost or down or alone or facing a personal struggle and you don't know where to turn, ask. If you're actually doing pretty darn well and you want to know how you can do even better or how you can give back by helping others, ask. If the dining hall seems like a long way away and you're wondering if they do some kind of room service, get off your butt and go, all right? To all of our new members of the Bellarmine family and everyone who accompanied you here today, we are so happy that you are here. Welcome and have a wonderful semester.